Today on Simple Fixin', it is our year in review. We're going to go back and show you how to change the tire on your car, how to get your lawnmower ready for the season, how to deconstruct a family heirloom. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Simple Fixin'. We're going to show you some clips from our very first episode where Will Amio showed you how to change the fluids in your car and where I showed you how to change a tire.
And we're going to go over some of the fluids that go into making your engine run. This is your steering fluid. However, we're not going to mess with this. This is pretty much just for your mechanic. For those of you who don't know, the steering fluid goes into the power steering system so that you don't have to crank so hard when you're turning. This is washer fluid, rather straightforward. Just pop the cap open, you can pour washer fluid down in here, and it'll go down to the pumps for your windshield. Now this is your coolant tank. We want to be very careful with this because this cap can get really hot. Basically you want to park your car and then wait for a while before opening this. Otherwise you could have an expel of gas and or liquid that can burn you pretty badly in some cases.
Jack underneath the car. We are once again working on the 2004 Florida Explorer. Now as you can see right here, this is the frame of the car. You want to place the jack underneath the frame to get it in a good position to lift the car up. You want to get it set so it's going to sit on there pretty square on a flat level surface, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and attach the handle and jack up the car. Have our jack placed. The next thing we need to do is pop off the cap to get to the lug nuts and then break the bolts. You do not want to do this once you get it up in the air because the tire will spin, and it makes it pretty impossible to do that unless you have somebody there to hold on to it. Not something you want to do on the side of the road. So basically what you're going to do is, in the case of this cap, you're going to find the notch. The handle comes with a little thing to pry it off. Slide it right in there, pop it off. There should be two of them. The other one's right there. You can get it in there. Maybe. There you go. Just go ahead. Pull it off, try not to break it. And as you can see, there's 5 lug nuts in here, and that's what the other end of this handle is for. Doubles as a wrench, get it on there. Always remember, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Go ahead and break the bolts, get them loosened up, but you don't have to take them all the way off. You're not gonna do that right now. Remember, when working on your car, if you have any questions or you're not sure about something, consult your mechanic as soon as possible and don't take things into your own hand. And when we come back to Simple Fixin', we're going to be talking about our second episode where Will Amio and I showed you how to prep your lawn tools for the spring. Stay tuned.
Happen to anyone. It happens all the time, even here.
A lot of people don't realize that when they're walking around the college campus, people they see every day could be, survivors of sexual assault.
A lot of people might have experienced sexual violence, maybe not on campus, but within their immediate families or with a close relative or a friend that they might have known.
Young people would just think we're invincible.
It's a very emotionally powerful subject.
And so thinking that one night, day, any time that this could happen to you is just kind of unfathomable to people our age.
Always have a group of friends that knows where you're going, what your plans are.
I think that everyone deserves an advocate for these things that are hard to talk about.
Most importantly, be educated about sexual violence.
It can happen to anyone.
Welcome back to Simple Fixin. We're going to take a look at episode 2 now, where Will Amio and I showed you how to prep 3 lawn tools for the spring. Welcome to Simple Fixins. Today we're going to be talking about things you're going to use in your lawn.
Lawnmowers, weed eaters, leaf blowers, the whole shebang.
I'm Ross Struess.
And I'm Will Amio.
Stay tuned. Start right now by checking the oil in here, and it works much the same way as a car does. You untwist it, and take a look at this and see where we're at as far as oil. As you can see right here, we are actually in the full line. There might be a little too much oil in there, but that's nothing to worry about. Better a little too much than not enough. So after you get your dipstick back in there, the next thing you want to do before firing up your mowers, you need to check and see how much gas you have in there, Will Amio. Why don't you check that out?
So when you're filling gas, it's pretty simple. This just spins off just like your regular car, and we're just going to leave that right there. Make sure we don't lose that. That'd be terrible. We're going to grab a jerry can, and this is just a portable thing for carrying gas. And we're just going to quickly fill up, watching carefully to make sure we don't overfill. So now we have our oil and we have enough gas to start this thing up.
There's one more thing we need to do yet though, and that is we need to clean the air filter, or at least check and see how dirty it is. And that is over here on this side over here. Will, if you would go ahead and take that off. Sometimes there's actually a screw in here you need to undo. In this case, there's just a little turn knob right there you have to undo to get to the air filter.
And again, this varies from mower to mower, but this one's a pretty simple system. This whole hinge just comes right off, and here is your air filter. And as you can see, it's pretty messy. So Ross is going to tell you how to clean one of these.
Yard, and that is the ever handy leaf blower. Will?
All right, this is actually a combination leaf blower and vacuum. You can change the setting right here so that you can either blow leaves off your lawn onto your neighbors, or you can vacuum up leaves and then mulch them into a bag that we can attach real quick here.
The bag on this particular machine actually gets clipped onto the bottom here. You got to have it lined up right or it won't go on. You twist it in to lock it in, and then if Will was out doing this, he could just throw the bag right over his shoulder, plug it in, and away he goes. He can suck up dry leaves and it will mulch them and bag them for him, so all he has to do is then dump them into the trash container to be picked up by the mulching guys at the end of the week. And remember, when you're working with any of these tools, whether it be a lawnmower, a weed eater, or a leaf blower, that you should need to dress appropriately. Jeans and safety glasses are probably the two biggest ones, as you don't want to get any nicks or cuts on your legs while weed eating. And safety glasses are always essential, as you don't want to end up with any stray sticks or anything like that flying up into your face and getting into your eyes. That would cause some severe damage and a trip to the hospital.
To anyone.
It happens all the time, even here.
A lot of people don't realize that when they're walking around the college campus, people they see every day could be, survivors of sexual assault.
A lot of people might have experienced sexual violence, maybe not on campus, but within their immediate families or with a close relative or friend that they might have known.
Young people would just think we're invincible.
is a very emotionally powerful subject.
And so thinking that one night, day, any time that this could happen to you is just kind of unfathomable to people our age.
Always have, a group of friends that knows where you're going, what your plans are.
I think that everyone deserves an advocate for these things that are hard to talk about.
Most importantly, be educated about sexual violence.
It can happen to anyone.
And welcome back to Simple Fixin. We're going to take a look at clips now from episodes 3 and 4 where Will Amio and I showed you how to deconstruct a cabinet that was a family heirloom and showed you how to properly sand it. Also, we talk about the top 10 tools that every man should have in his toolbox. We're going to be working on an older piece of furniture. This particular piece came into my family's possession. It belonged to a cousin of mine, and he actually made it in high school. This was the 1960s-ish, so this is a pretty old piece. It's still 60 years old or so. He's in his 70s now. There's been quite a bit of damage to this piece. There's some water issues down on this side here. As if you were able to take a look at the top, maybe we can tilt this forward just a bit. There is some water issues on the shelves in here too that we're going to try to fix up. This is going to be a full restoration, by the way. What we're going to do to this piece is we're going to take the hardware off. It's going to be completely replaced. The back is going to be taken off and completely replaced. And we're going to virtually rip this thing apart and sand it down, restain it, re-lacquer it, and try to make it look as brand new as we possibly can. I don't think it's a job that's too far out there. I think it's something that we can really work at. But before we get to that, there are some safety tips we need to go over. Obviously, basic ones, watch out for rusty nails. You don't want to be making a trip to the hospital because you got stuck with one and need a tetanus shot. That's not something that you really want to be doing. And then on top of that, just be aware of your surroundings. You don't want to be swinging a hammer around or something like that when there's somebody around you in the event you hit them, anything like that. But you know what? I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Over to our piece. I've already kind of started loosening it up here at the top. One of the things interesting about this piece is we found out that they actually did not nail the entire thing together. Most of it is router joints, so it's just a square joint. So they basically took a piece of wood and put it into a square joint and glued it that way. So this should be fairly easy to get apart, but the back is nailed in with 1/4-inch brads. So we got to take our screwdriver that we have for our prying device and our hammer and basically pry this thing off. We're going to start up at the top here. I've already started, like I said, but we got to keep going across the top. If you just pry it out a little bit, you can start going across nice and slow, and then just move right down the edges. You got to use your hammer and your prying device, whether you're using a screwdriver or a crowbar, kind of in tandem. You just got to kind of keep overlapping each other, making that pull out. As you go down along the sides here, you're going to hear the nails pop as you go. Older it is, we're not too worried about breaking the back on this since it's going to be replaced. But nonetheless, if it's something that you are going to... I'm just going to take this next one out again. Should just pop out, we hope. Maybe. Don't want to twist this too much. There we go, got it out. Had a little problem right there. That's no problem. We can fix that out and sand that down. It's not that big a deal. As you can see, it's kind of starting to fall apart now. This is our middle shelf, second from top. I knocked this piece up here off, and this shelf was actually notched out so the door could close around it. Now, I'm going to walk you through a little bit here how I put this back together. When you knock something off or you break something, keep the piece. Don't necessarily assume that it's completely unfixable. What I did was I took the piece and I used Gorilla Glue, which is almost an epoxy. It bonds wood, stone, metal, a whole bunch of things. Your fingers, if you're not careful, so make sure you're not keeping your fingers too close or anything like that. That's your Simple Fixin safety tip of the day. And it's an expanding glue too. So what we did was we put just a little bit of the glue on the piece and stuck it on there, and we actually clamped it down. And as the glue cures, it actually comes out, and it has a really tight bond on it now. So what we'll have to do is we're going to take a piece of sandpaper, we're going to sand that off, smooth that out, and then the piece is ready to go. We've been working on sanding this piece here for the last couple of minutes. My partner in crime here, Will Amio, has been sanding this half of the board. And as you can take a look here, first thing we did was in this piece that we fixed right here, we've been sanding down the piece. There's a little bit right here where the glue is really stuck up and expanded right there. We got that almost down where we need it to be. It'll take a little bit more smoothing out. And we've also been really sanding right in this area. Now, if you come in with the camera here real quick, Dan, you see right here where we've been sanding, we've pretty much taken this clear down to the base part of the wood, and a lot of the stain has come off, especially over here where Will's really been working hard. You can tell the difference in the color. First of all, we have not sanded any of this right up here yet, and you can still see it's the yellow, still has a little bit of the varnish on there, you can feel it somewhat, but down here it's very smooth, and we're getting down to the bottom base wood right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep sanding away at this particular piece, and eventually what we'll do is as we work along here, Will wants to go ahead and start sanding again. Do both sides, do all the edges, get as much of the stain off as we can. Take this back down. As you can see right here, as I just started that piece, you can see the yellow around it, and it doesn't take very long. This was not stained very well the first time around, and because of that, it's pretty easy to take off. We'll probably switch to a power sander at some point to really get this off, but for the most part, going pretty well so far. We need to do this with all the pieces that we have going. But since it's a pretty quick moving process so far, I don't think we'll have any trouble doing that. So stay tuned to Simple Fixin.
Varnish it, it's going to look pretty messed up. When you're sanding, you want to sand along the grain. And for those of you who don't know, the grain are these striations in the wood that occur while the tree is growing. And then when it's cut, you can kind of see these lines kind of laid out in the wood. And when I say you want to go along the wood, you're going to take your sandpaper and go down the length of these lines. Now if you do go the other way, I'm not going to do it because it's not the greatest idea. If you do go across, you're going to create some lines that will be very apparent in your finished project when you do stain it. It'll look very scratched and very shoddy. So again, you want to go along the grain, just be careful.
Person should have in their toolbox, and we're going to start off with a pole saw. Now this is not your typical saw, and it's exactly like it sounds. It cuts on the pole. Now there's a reason you should have this bad boy. It cuts a little bit easier. It's easier to start in my opinion. And so when you're working on basic projects, especially when you're restoring something, if you have to make a cut or anything like that, it's going to be a lot easier to get it started, like I said, and it's just going to have a lot smoother feel to it as we're cutting. That's your first tool. The second tool that every person should have in their toolbox is a tape measure. A lot of people want to use steel rulers, things like that. If you're working in a workshop, maybe a steel ruler isn't a bad idea. But if you're out on a work site or something like that, especially since the tape measure has a clip on it, and they're typically 25 foot long, whereas a steel ruler is usually 3 foot long. So you know you're going to work around that. This is just a very versatile tool, and it's almost impossible to break. I have done it, but it's nearly impossible to break. Your next tool is going to be a pair of pliers. Now this thing can handle just about anything. You know, a pair of pliers you can use to grip nails, to pull them out. You can use it to twist out screws that you've stripped a head on. By the way, stripping a head on a screw is like taking the grooves out of it, so you're not able to turn it out. You can grab a hold of it with one of these and twist it out that way. A pliers is just a good all-around tool to have for whatever may come around. Now while on that thought process, this is an adjustable crescent wrench. This thing right here is good. Once again, it's just a very multi-purpose tool. Keep one of these in your car. Should you have battery issues or anything like that in your engine, you want to keep one of these in there so you don't have to carry a complete socket set or a complete set of crescent wrenches around, which we'll get to that in a second. But you can do lots of things with this. Twist bolts into wood, fix your car, do anything with this. I would especially say keep one of these in your car, but put one in your toolbox too. Moving on from there is a non-adjustable crescent wrench. A whole set of these would go well in your toolbox. You can use these for just about anything. I keep my toolbox in my car, so it's not just for working on restoration projects, anything like that. So in this case, these are definitely what you want to use in your car. You need to have an English set and a metric set for working on cars, and typically for working on like outside projects, like say a swing set or a deck, you're probably not going to need a metric set as you're going to be picking out the bolts for those. But keep both of them around, very handy to have. Next up is your Phillips screwdriver. Two screwdrivers in this case. I'm actually going to talk about both of these at the same time, a Phillips and a flathead. A Phillips head is your star, basically, or a cross, if you will, and a flathead is exactly what it says. I would also keep one around that we've been using on this particular project that has multiple heads on it. You're going to find star heads, you're going to find square drives, you're going to find all kinds of things. So keep one that has multiple heads on it too. You can keep that in there. That's the 11th tool. That would be number 11 on my list, but it did not make the top 10 cut. A utility knife, also very important, very sharp. Keep a utility knife and spare blades in your toolbox. You never know what you can use this for. You can cut pretty much anything with it. Rubber, you can cut, make marks in wood if you don't have anything to score a piece of wood with, anything like that. So a utility knife is very handy to have around, and you can do a lot of things with that also. And like I said, keep your blades around. Last week when we were working on our restoration project, I tried to mark the pieces of wood with a mechanical pencil. Don't do that. This is a carpenter's pencil. You can actually use your utility knife to sharpen your carpenter's pencil, and this is going to do a lot better. It's got a nice thick piece of lead in there that Will can probably catch on his camera, but a lot easier to mark wood with, a lot better to mark with. Don't use mechanical pencils. Don't do what I did. And the final tool you should always keep in your toolbox is your old standby, and that's your trusty old hammer. This one's a 16-ounce hammer, a pound, for those of you that don't deal in ounces very well. But again, a hammer, knock something back into place, drive nails, things like that, knock things apart, as we found out last week. So these are all things that you need to keep in your toolbox. And like I said, you know, keep it in your car. You don't necessarily have to just leave it in your garage. These tools can come in handy in lots of places, and definitely are something that you might need at some point in time. So keep your toolbox well supplied, and you don't have to limit to these things either. You can keep things like duct tape, WD-40, and who knows what else, other tools you keep in there, needle nose pliers, wire strippers, anything like that that you think you might need at some point. Keep those in your toolbox. And now when we come back, Will Amio is going to have some... You were recording that whole thing. Feeling lucky, punk? Feeling lucky? Sorry, I don't know where that came from. Okay, anyway. Not working in your yard with any of these tours. Okay. Oh, hey, what are you still doing here? I forgot something. Oh, you're right. Yeah, you didn't get dirty. You didn't do it right.